never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine, I'm not.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Since it's a Thursday, we are right smack dab in the middle of week number 9 in the world of college football. It started Tuesday night when New Mexico State faced Louisiana Tech, and we also had Liberty going up against Western Kentucky. And then last night we had Jacksonville State at Florida International and UTEP at Sam Houston State. And I hope that the South Carolina Gamecocks watched that game last night with the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, because those two teams play each other later on this year. I believe it's next Saturday. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the way the Carolina Gamecocks look, Jacksonville State might give them a game next Saturday. Not saying that Jacksonville State will beat them, but don't be surprised if that game is a fourth quarter game. Tonight we have Syracuse at Virginia Tech, two huge rivals back in the days of the Big East Conference in football. That game will be on ESPN, and then on ESPN2 tonight we have Georgia State at Georgia Southern. Tomorrow night, 7:30 on ESPN2, Florida Atlantic at Charlotte. And then coming up on Saturday, like always, we'll start with the noon games. I try to separate these games by start time so you know what game to look for when. I don't go by the rankings. I go by the game times. At noon, we have Florida State at Wake Forest on ABC. Oklahoma at Kansas on Fox. Indiana at Penn State on CBS. UMass at Army on the CBS Sports Network. UConn at Boston College on the ACC Network. Maryland at Northwestern on the Big Ten Network. South Carolina at Texas A&M on ESPN. And South Carolina better win this game if they have any hopes at all of going to a bowl game of any kind, ever how small it might be, because they're 2-5 right now. If they lose this game, they're 2-6, and they are not winning 4 games in a row. So if the Gamecocks of South Carolina have any aspirations of going to a bowl game this year, they better beat A&M on Saturday. Houston at Kansas State on ESPN2. West Virginia at Central Florida on Fox Sports 1. And Tulsa at SMU is on ESPN-U, and that is all the noon games for Saturday. Then at 2 o'clock on the Charlie Whitehurst Network. No, it's CW, but to me that's Charlie Whitehurst Network. We have Clemson at NC State, and I have not looked since Sunday, but just out of curiosity, on Sunday when the line for the Clemson game first came out, I took a peek at it because I was curious, because both teams have atrocious offenses. And on Sunday, when the opening line came out, it had Clemson favored by 10. And I don't know how in the world you favor Clemson by 10 unless you think they're going to win 10-0 or 13-3, because Clemson's averaging 19 points a game this year against Power 5 competition. So if they're going to win by 10, then that means NC State's going to score about 7 or 8 points, which is a possibility because Clemson's defense is playing good. But even if NC State does score 7 points, I'm not certain Clemson scores 17. This might be a good old-fashioned 80s-style football game where the final score is 10-7. 3:30 on Saturday, we have Georgia at Florida on CBS. And I am absolutely sick and tired of people talking about this game and saying we can no longer call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, but yet you're still calling it that. Until you give it a new name, unless you just say Georgia, Florida, as long as you keep saying we can no longer call it that, you're still calling it that. That's like talking about somebody and saying, I bet you think I'm talking about you. Well, in reality, you are. If you're coming out and saying we can no longer call this game the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, then that's what you're still calling it. Either call it that or stop saying it. 3:30 on ABC, we have BYU at Texas. This will be Texas' first game this year without Quinn Ewers. I think they still beat BYU pretty handily. Fox, Oregon at Utah. NBC, Pittsburgh at Notre Dame. ESPN, Duke at Louisville. The SEC Network, Mississippi State at Auburn. The Big Ten Network, Michigan State at Minnesota. Purdue and Nebraska on Fox Sports 1. And Virginia at Miami on the ACC Network. Then at 4 o'clock, we have Tulane at Rice on ESPN 2. 5:30 on Fox Sports 2. Wyoming at Boise State. 7 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Washington at Stanford. Air Force and Colorado State is the 7 o'clock game on the CBS Sports Network. Tennessee at Kentucky on ESPN. Then at 7:30, Ohio State at Wisconsin on NBC. Vanderbilt at Ole Miss on the SEC Network. And Colorado at UCLA is the ABC primetime game Saturday night. 8 o'clock on the ACC Network, North Carolina at Georgia Tech. Old Dominion at James Madison on ESPN U. Cincinnati at Oklahoma State on ESPN 2. Then at 10:30, we have Oregon State at Arizona on ESPN. New Mexico at Nevada on the CBS Sports Network. And UNLV at Fresno State on Fox Sports 1. And I did not write the game down because it's not on any kind of television. But if you look on any of the websites now that show you the game times for all the college football games, Hawaii has their game times now set for 11:59 p.m. Of course, we know that Hawaii is in a way different time zone than we are, so they have played their home games at midnight for a long time. But of course, midnight on the East Coast is Sunday. Well, since all the college football games are on Saturday, they have bumped their game time up to 1 minute, and now their game times are listed for 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday night. I just think that is absolutely hysterical. Should be a good weekend in the world of college football. I don't know if any game this weekend is going to determine, if a team goes to the playoffs or not. I don't see any top five matchups on the docket this weekend. I don't see any real top 10 matchups on the docket this weekend. Close with Oregon and Utah, but Utah is just outside the top 10. But outside of that, I don't see any huge games. But there's not a lot of wasteful games this weekend. So there's not a lot of games where you turn it on and by the first quarter, well, that game's over with. So there's not a lot of great games, but there's not a lot of trash games. So it should be a good weekend. Of course, as I mentioned earlier in the week, I do not have any wrestling shows this weekend due to family obligations. So I'll be home all day Saturday and all day Sunday after church Sunday morning. But I'll try to watch what I can on Saturday. But of course, the Clemson game being at 2 o'clock is going to mess up a lot of the games for me, because when Clemson plays, I don't care if Clemson plays at 1 o'clock on a Sunday morning on the moon. If it's on TV, I'm going to watch it. So them playing at 2 o'clock, almost all, if not all, the noon games will be at halftime. So whichever one I choose to watch at noon, I'm only going to see the first half. And then by the time the Clemson game ends, all the 3:30 games will be at halftime. So I'll miss the second half of the noon games, and then I'll miss the first half of the 3:30 games. But then I should see all of the prime time games. And speaking of Clemson game times, I got a chuckle earlier in the week. It might have been Monday morning, but somebody tweeted out earlier in the week that the way that Clemson and South Carolina are playing right now, when it comes time for that rivalry on the last Saturday in November, they should go ahead and move that game time up and play that game Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock on the Cartoon Network. That way, nobody has to watch it. And it made me laugh that I was like, you know what? That's pitiful, but it's true. The way they're playing right now, that game should be on the Cartoon Network on a Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. That way, nobody watches it. But any thoughts on any of these games, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. And right before our dad joke of the day, let me go ahead and say that if I hear one more Georgia fan say they're worried about Georgia because of Brock Bowers being hurt, I'm going to take a butter knife and I'm going to slowly cut my ears off. I have heard that more than I ever care to hear it again. And I've told them all the same thing. First of all, Georgia's got 19,745 five-star athletes. If you miss one, that's on Georgia, not Brock Bowers. Second of all, you're already finding a built-in excuse for if you lose. Third of all, the tight ends behind him are just as good as he is. It's just they don't play because he's there. They were going to show how great they were next year when Brock is gone, but now with the injury, they can show it now. But you can't have 19,478 five-star athletes and cry and witch and moan because you lost one player. Don't work that way. Every team in America has injuries. They always have. They always will. You can sit on Google and type up every single team in America, Power 5, Group of 5, and I guarantee you every single team is going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 players that are injured. It happens. It's always happened. It always will happen. And it's not a football thing. People get injured in baseball, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, volleyball, badminton, rowing. It doesn't matter. Any kind of physical sport, people are going to get injured. The only time people can say that injury hurt us is a quarterback, because this day and time, the game of football is all about the quarterback. And if you don't have a playmaker at quarterback, you're not going to win. So maybe if a team loses a quarterback, you can use that for an excuse. But outside of that, no other position on the football field determines whether or not you lose. You either win or you lose. But in the case of Georgia, they've got five-star athletes on top of five-star athletes on top of five-star athletes on top of five-star athletes. And you can't have that many five-star players and lose one and then act like it's going to hurt you. Don't work that way. If you lose a game because of Brock Bowers being injured, that means you're just relying way too much on that one player. And it should not be that way. But it does happen. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday about the Braves. We were talking about Ronald Acuna Jr., how he is by far the Braves' best player, and it's not close. But in 2021, when he got injured, the Braves won the World Series. So that goes to show two things. One, your best player can get hurt, and you can still win. And two, it might have been beneficial to the Braves for him to get hurt, because they rely so much on him that if Acuna Jr. hits a slump, the entire team slumps. If he gets hot, the whole team gets hot. They just put way too much pressure on him. And Georgia, it might be the same way. They may come out Saturday and look 3 times better without Brock Bowers. We don't know until Saturday gets here, but they rely so much on him that with him not being there, the other players have to step up, and it may actually help Georgia with Brock Bowers being out. But if you lose, not just Saturday, but any game, it ain't because Brock Bowers hurt. It's because you got beat. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. The fitness instructor asked, "What kind of squats am I accustomed to doing?" I said, "Diddly." And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.